They thought I was just a confused old woman who'd forgotten how to count. By the time they realized their mistake, I had already vanished into the night, taking with me secrets that would destroy them and a fortune they never knew existed. Penelope's plastic smile stretched across her face like a crack in porcelain as she reached for my trembling hands. The retirement community has wonderful activities, Mom. Bridge tournaments, knitting circles, even pottery classes. Her voice dripped with false sweetness while her eyes calculated numbers I wasn't supposed to understand. My son David nodded eagerly beside her, adjusting the expensive tie I'd bought him for his wedding 5 years ago. The same wedding where I'd gifted them their house down payment. The staff there specializes in memory care, he said, each word carefully chosen like ammunition. Dr. Richardson thinks the structured environment would help with your episodes. Episodes. The word hung in the air like poison gas. I'd been faking those memory lapses for months, testing them, hoping against hope that my own children would show me an ounce of genuine care. Instead, I discovered something far worse than indifference. I'd uncovered pure greed wrapped in concern. My younger son Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his designer suit, another gift from me. He avoided my eyes as he spoke. The Willowbrook facility is highly rated. Private rooms, gourmet meals, medical care around the clock. He paused, finally meeting my gaze with what he probably thought looked like love. You'll be so much happier there, Mom. No more worrying about bills or maintenance or any of those complicated business decisions. Complicated business decisions. The same decisions that had built my real estate empire from a single-family rental to a multi-million-dollar portfolio. The same decisions that had paid for their educations, their cars, their wedding receptions, their children's college funds. Now suddenly, at 72, I was too incompetent to handle money? The restaurant around us buzzed with the chatter of other families enjoying Sunday brunch. Crystal glasses clinked against fine china, while servers glided between tables carrying silver trays. Everything was elegant, refined, perfect for what my children believed would be my surrender. When would this transition take place? I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. Tomorrow morning, David answered too quickly, revealing just how long they'd been planning this betrayal. We've already completed the paperwork. Just need your signature on a few documents. And my properties? My investments? I watched their faces carefully, seeing the moment of panic flash across their features like lightning. Penelope squeezed my hands tighter, her grip burning with deception. Don't worry about any of that, sweetie. We'll handle everything. It's too much stress for someone your age. Too much stress. The properties I'd personally renovated, the tenants I'd screened, the investments I'd researched and managed for decades, all suddenly too stressful for the woman who'd built the empire they were salivating to inherit. That night, I watched them through my bedroom door as they sat around my dining table with champagne and legal documents spread before them like a feast. The oak table where I'd signed my first property deed 30 years ago now served as the stage for my financial execution. The oceanfront condo alone is worth $600,000, David whispered, his voice thick with anticipation. Plus the downtown office building, the residential properties, the investment accounts. $2.8 million total, Marcus added, raising his glass in a toast to my supposed dementia. Once she signs tomorrow, we can start the incompetency proceedings. My lawyer says it'll be straightforward given her recent confusion. Confusion? I'd asked them to repeat the time twice in one afternoon, a performance to test their patience. They'd failed spectacularly. Penelope pulled out a copy of my will, the one they'd somehow obtained from my lawyer's office. With the incompetency declaration, we can challenge this old version and get full control within 6 months. She'll never know what hit her. What hit me was the realization that I'd raised vultures instead of children. But they'd made one crucial error in their calculations. They'd underestimated their target. At 4 a.m, while they slept off their victory celebration, I dressed in my finest black business suit and gathered the essentials. Passport, the jewelry they didn't know about, and most importantly, a key to a safety deposit box in a bank they'd never heard of. Inside that box were documents that would change everything. The taxi arrived silently, The driver helped with my single suitcase and asked no questions exactly what I'd requested when I'd arranged the pickup the week before. At the airport, I purchased a one-way ticket to Clearwater Beach, Florida, a destination my children had never heard me mention because some secrets are too precious to share with those who don't deserve them. During the flight, I closed my eyes and remembered my late husband Robert's words. Margaret, never trust anyone completely, not even family. Blood can be corrupted, but wisdom is eternal. He'd been right, and I was about to prove it. Clearwater Beach greeted me with salt air and memories of better times. This was where I'd purchased my first investment property 28 years ago with money I'd saved from my secretarial job, $5,000 that seemed like a fortune then, but had grown into something my children couldn't imagine. The taxi stopped before a pale yellow cottage with blue shutters, tucked away on a quiet street lined with swaying palm trees. The driver looked skeptical. You sure this is the right place, ma'am? Looks empty. I smiled, feeling genuinely happy for the first time in months. It's perfect. The house had been waiting for me like a loyal friend. I unlocked the door with hands that trembled not from age, but from emotion. The familiar creak of the hinges welcomed me home to my secret sanctuary, the escape plan I'd maintained for decades without anyone's knowledge. Inside, dust motes danced in the morning sunlight that streamed through windows overlooking a small garden. White sheets covered furniture like ghosts of past happiness. But on the kitchen table, impossible yet real, sat a handwritten note. Mrs. Whitlock, I've been waiting for you. Elena. Elena. My heart lurched with recognition. She'd been my housekeeper for 12 years until David and Marcus decided she was an unnecessary expense. They'd fired her to save money while spending thousands on golf club memberships and expensive vacations. Footsteps on the front porch announced her arrival. The door opened slowly, and there she stood, Elena Rodriguez, her dark hair now streaked with silver, her kind face lined with years of hard work and loyalty. The same warm smile that had brightened my mornings for over a decade. I knew you'd come here, she said simply, as if only days had passed instead of years. When I heard what your sons were planning, I knew you'd find your way back. How did you know about their plans? Elena's expression darkened. Penelope called me 2 months ago. She wanted information about your finances, any bank accounts you might have hidden. She thought I might know about money you'd stashed away. Elena laughed bitterly. I told her I knew nothing about your business affairs. But you did know. I knew about this house. I knew about the safe. I knew about your backup plan because you trusted me enough to share it. Elena's eyes filled with tears. You treated me like family when your own family treated you like a burden. She led me to a back room I barely remembered, now converted into a small office with filing cabinets and a wall safe. The combination is still the same, she said softly. Robert's birthday. My beloved Robert, gone 8 years but still protecting my future through the wisdom he'd shared. I opened the safe with steady hands, revealing documents my children never knew existed: deeds to properties in 3 states, investment accounts with substantial balances, and most importantly, a business plan I've been developing for 5 years. The Golden Years Project, Elena said, watching me review the papers. Your dream of creating a place where older women could live with dignity, where they wouldn't be discarded like yesterday's newspaper. Is everything still in place? The land is purchased. The permits are approved. The funding is secured. It just needed you to come back and activate it. Elena pulled out her phone. Mr. Crawford has been waiting for your call. James Crawford, my secret attorney, the only legal professional who knew the full extent of my plans. I'd hired him 5 years ago when I first suspected my children's true nature, paying him from accounts they'd never discover. I dialed the number I'd memorized years ago. He answered immediately. Margaret. His voice carried relief and anticipation. I knew you'd call today. Are you ready to begin? More than ready, James. It's time to teach my children who they're really dealing with. Everything is prepared. Your children have scheduled a family meeting for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning at your house. They believe they're going to witness your signing the transfer documents. I smiled as I watched the Gulf waters through the cottage window. Who else will be there? David, Marcus, Penelope. Plus, they've invited your brother William. They want family witnesses to make everything appear legitimate. They've also hired Richard Stone, a lawyer with the reputation for flexible ethics. William, my older brother who'd always envied my business success. Of course he'd be there like a scavenger smelling opportunity. Our plan. Perfect. I'll arrive at 10:30 when they're all assembled and confident. I have the original documents, the recordings we made, and the special video you prepared. The video my insurance policy recorded 2 years ago when I sensed this day approaching. In it, I detailed my true feelings, my actual plans, and revealed secrets about my children that would destroy their reputations forever. Elena will accompany me? Essential. Her testimony about their attempts to gather financial information will be invaluable. That evening, Elena and I stayed awake planning the confrontation and reminiscing about better times. She told me about her life after my children dismissed her, working for another family, never giving up hope that she'd see me again. I visited this house every month, she said as we sipped chamomile tea. Maintained it, checked on everything, kept your documents safe. I knew you'd need it someday. Why did you have so much faith? Because I know who you really are, Mrs. Whitlock. You're not someone who gives up. You're a fighter. At 8 o'clock the next morning, James called with an update. Your children are panicking. They've been calling hospitals and police stations all night, reporting you missing. Of course, a confused elderly woman couldn't just disappear on her own. They're building a case that someone kidnapped or manipulated you, the perfect setup for their incompetency claim. The irony was delicious. While they reported my disappearance as evidence of my mental decline, I was orchestrating my return as their worst nightmare. The drive back felt triumphant. Elena sat beside me, silent but determined, while James followed in his car with documents that would shatter my children's world. I dressed like the businesswoman I'd always been, prepared for the most important meeting of my life. We stopped a block from my house, surveying the scene like generals planning a battle. David's gray BMW sat in my driveway alongside Marcus's white Mercedes, and an unfamiliar sedan belonging to their corrupt lawyer. William's red pickup truck completed the collection of vehicles belonging to my would-be grave robbers. Are you certain you want to proceed? James asked for the final time. Once we start this, there's no turning back. I thought of Penelope's fake smiles, David's lies about my mental state, Marcus's greed disguised as concern. I thought of the years I'd sacrificed to build their futures, only to have them plot my premature burial. I've never been more certain of anything. I rang the doorbell of my own home, savoring the symbolism. They'd taken such complete control that I needed permission to enter my own house. Penelope answered, her face cycling through surprise, fear, calculation, and finally that practiced smile I'd learned to despise. Margaret, thank God you're safe. We were so worried. Where have you been? Thinking, I replied calmly, walking into my living room as if seeing it for the first time. Making some very important decisions. David rushed from the dining room where legal documents covered my table like death certificates. Mom, we've been sick with worry. We called everywhere looking for you. Worried about me or worried about your timeline? The silence that followed was so thick I could taste the fear in the air. Marcus cleared his throat nervously while Penelope exchanged panicked glances with David. I don't understand, David stammered, but his voice shook with guilt. I think you understand perfectly. I gestured toward the papers spread across my dining table. But before we discuss your documents, I'd like you to meet my legal representative. James knocked on cue. The crooked lawyer they'd hired stood up from my table, sweat already beading on his forehead. James Crawford, he announced, entering with Elena at his side. I specialize in elder fraud and asset protection. The color drained from my children's faces. William took an involuntary step backward, clearly regretting his involvement. James opened his briefcase with theatrical precision. Mrs. Whitlock, I understand there are documents requiring your signature to transfer your assets to your children? That's correct, I confirmed, watching David try to regain his composure. Excellent. But first, I need to verify your mental competency for such a decision. James pulled out a thick folder. I have here a recent psychological evaluation from Dr. Amanda Foster confirming that Mrs. Whitlock possesses full mental capacity and decision-making ability. I'd obtained the evaluation a week before my disappearance, anticipating exactly this scenario. I also have some interesting audio recordings made in this very house 6 months ago. James pressed play on a digital recorder, and David's voice filled the room with crystal clarity. I just wish she'd die already. This pretending to care is exhausting. Once she's gone, we liquidate everything and split the money. Marcus's voice followed. All we need is a way to declare her incompetent. After that, it's a simple matter of gaining control of her assets. Finally, Penelope's voice. She's just a stubborn old woman. If she won't cooperate, we'll stick her in the cheapest facility we can find. The silence was deafening. William stared at me with genuine horror, finally understanding what kind of conspiracy he'd stumbled into. Those recordings are taken out of context, David protested weakly. Out of context? James laughed coldly. I have 4 hours of similar recordings, all made with your mother's full knowledge and consent, as she suspected your intentions for months. Elena moved to the table and examined their fraudulent documents. These papers contain forged signatures and reference assets that don't exist in official records. Impossible, protested Stone, their hired lawyer. But he was already packing his briefcase. Very possible when someone has been planning to rob their own mother for years, I said finally, my voice carrying an authority that had been dormant too long. And especially possible when that mother is far more intelligent than you ever imagined. James then produced his laptop and connected it to my television. Now let's discuss the real numbers. A financial presentation appeared on the screen, showing property values, investment accounts, and business holdings that made my children's jaws drop. Property after property flashed before their eyes, each revelation hitting them like a physical blow. Your mother's true net worth, James announced with satisfaction, exceeds $4.2 million. Penelope went white as chalk. David gripped his chair as if the world were collapsing beneath him. $4 million. Marcus whispered, his voice cracking. $4.2 million to be exact. Money you planned to steal while I supposedly made potholders in some grim institution. The next slides revealed properties they'd never imagined. Condos in Key West and Tampa, commercial buildings in 3 cities, investment portfolios with blue-chip stocks, and international accounts they couldn't have dreamed existed. How? David couldn't complete the question. How did a confused, senile woman accumulate such wealth without your knowledge? Simple. You completely underestimated your mother. Elena placed another folder on the table. There's also the business Mrs. Whitlock has been running discreetly for the past 5 years, a property management consultancy that generates significant annual income. What business? Penelope asked, her voice strangled. This is my favorite part, I announced, savoring their shock. The Golden Years Sanctuary, a residential community for elderly women who've been abandoned by their families. James changed the slide to reveal architectural renderings of a beautiful complex with gardens, libraries, medical facilities, and dignified apartments for 180 residents. The land is purchased, permits approved, construction begins next month. You, my dear children, have become the primary inspiration for this project. I don't understand, Marcus mumbled. Every time you treated me like a useless burden, every time you discussed my future without consulting me, every time you plotted behind my back, I added another feature to the Golden Years Sanctuary. Thanks to your cruelty, it will be the finest facility of its kind in the country. William finally found his voice. Margaret, I had no idea about any of this. I thought this was just a normal family discussion. I know, William. That's why you're not facing criminal charges. I pointed at my 3 traitorous children. But they will face the full consequences of their actions. James took the floor. Attempted elder fraud is a federal crime. Document forgery is another federal crime. Conspiracy to have someone declared incompetent without medical basis is a third. We're looking at multiple felony charges with potential prison sentences of 15 to 20 years combined. You can't do this to us, David exploded, standing abruptly. We're your family. Exactly. You are my children, which makes your betrayal infinitely more painful and unforgivable. I stood before David, forcing him to meet my eyes. I paid $85,000 for your education. I gave you $60,000 for your house down payment. I lent you $40,000 for your business that you never repaid. I loved you unconditionally for 43 years. This is how you repay me. I turned to Marcus. I paid your son's medical bills when he had pneumonia, $15,000. I supported you through your divorce, $30,000 in legal fees. I let you live rent-free in my house for 18 months when you lost your job. This is how you repay me. Finally, I faced Penelope. I welcomed you as a daughter when you married Marcus. I defended you when others criticized you. I included you in my will when you weren't even blood family. I treated you better than your own parents did. This is how you repay me. Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of liberation, of a woman finally allowing herself to feel all the rage she'd suppressed. For months, I let you make me feel worthless. I pretended to be confused when you needed me to be confused. I acted like the helpless old woman you required for your schemes. But it was all performance. It was all a test of your character. A test you failed catastrophically, James added. Elena placed the final document on the table, my real will. This is my actual last will and testament, drafted 3 years ago and updated last month when your plans became obvious. David tried to approach the document, but James blocked him. In this will, David inherits $10,000. Marcus inherits $10,000. Penelope inherits nothing, as she's proven herself unworthy of family consideration. 10,000. Marcus shouted. That's impossible. The remainder of my estate, $4,180,000, will be divided between the Golden Years Sanctuary, 3 charities that protect senior citizens, and Elena, who has shown more loyalty and love than my own children. Penelope began crying, but her tears no longer moved me. David slammed his fist on the table. Marcus sank into his chair as if he'd aged a decade in minutes. However, I continued, watching them grasp at hope. There is a possibility for redemption. What do you mean? David asked desperately. The Golden Years Sanctuary will need dedicated staff. It will need administrators who understand the value of human dignity. If you can prove over the next 5 years that you care about something more than money, if you can demonstrate that you understand the damage you've caused and are committed to repairing it, then we can discuss modifying the will. 5 years. Marcus muttered. 5 years working without salary at the sanctuary. 5 years proving you can value elderly people as human beings, not obstacles to your inheritance. 5 years proving you deserve to be called my children. The silence stretched endlessly. I could see their minds calculating, weighing options that no longer existed in their favor. And if we refuse? Penelope asked defiantly. James smiled coldly. Then you face the criminal charges immediately and lose any possibility of inheritance forever. The choice is yours, I concluded. Walk away right now and never see me again. Or stay and begin the long journey toward earning back my respect and your own dignity. The next 24 hours would determine whether I still had children or just strangers who shared my DNA. David was first to break the silence, his voice heavy with something that might have been genuine remorse. Mom, we never meant to hurt you. We thought we were helping. You thought locking me away while you spent my money was helping? I interrupted. You thought declaring me incompetent was assistance? We were wrong, Marcus admitted quietly. Completely, terribly wrong. Penelope wiped her eyes, smearing her expensive makeup. What would we have to do exactly? Real work, Elena answered before I could speak. Cleaning, maintenance, patient care, administration. Honest labor that will teach you the value of service over self-interest. But we don't know how to do that kind of work, Penelope protested. You'll learn, I said simply. The same way I learned to navigate the business world at your age. The same way I learned to manage investments in my 50s. The difference is I did it for growth and ambition. You'll do it for redemption and survival. Over the following months, I watched my children transform in ways I hadn't thought possible. David, who'd never worked with his hands, learned to maintain the facility's gardens with surprising dedication. Marcus discovered a talent for physical therapy, helping elderly residents regain mobility and independence. Even Penelope found purpose in the facility's beauty salon, where she helped women maintain their dignity and self-respect. The Golden Years Sanctuary opened 18 months later to nationwide acclaim. We housed 180 women who'd been abandoned, forgotten, or betrayed by their own families. Women who found new purpose, friendship, and dignity in their golden years. My children worked tirelessly, not because they had to, but because they'd finally discovered the satisfaction of meaningful labor. They'd learned the difference between earning money and earning respect. On the 5th anniversary of their sentence, I called them to my office at the sanctuary. They sat before me in work clothes, their hands callous from honest labor, their faces showing a maturity that had been absent before. "Your legal obligation ends today," I announced. "You're free to leave and resume your previous lives." David spoke first. "We don't want to leave, Mom. This place has become our home. These women have become our extended family. We finally understand what you tried to teach us," Marcus added. "Life isn't about what you can take. It's about what you can give." "We want to stay," Penelope said simply. "Not because we have to, but because this is the most important work we've ever done." That afternoon, I tore up the punitive will and replaced it with a new one. My children would inherit comfortable sums enough to live well but not enough to stop working and growing. The majority of my estate would remain with the sanctuary, ensuring it would help women for generations to come. As I sit here now watching my children tend to residents who remind me of myself, I realize that vengeance became redemption, justice became mercy, and I, a woman who was almost buried alive by her own family, found a way to resurrect not just my own life, but the lives of everyone around me. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from destroying your enemies, but from transforming them into the people you always hoped they could become. That's the kind of legacy worth leaving behind, not just money or property, but proof that love, properly applied, can change even the most corrupted hearts. If this story moved you, consider following for more tales of justice, redemption, and the extraordinary power of ordinary people to change their world.